Hello, everyone. My name is Raiza, and welcome to my podcast, Health Around the World. I will have some very special guests, and today I'm gonna talk with Rania. So, she is a doctor, she's a junior doctor in the UK. She's gonna be telling us about her experience, about med school, about healthcare system in the UK, and much more. So, stay with us to discover a little bit more about this doctor and also about the UK.
My name is Rania. I'm a junior doctor in the UK and I'm working in the Birmingham area in the UK. And Birmingham is the second biggest city in the UK. And I went to university in Bristol, which is a bit more south. And yeah, so university it was 5 years in Bristol. And this is my first year working as a doctor.
How was med school for you? How this 5 years went for you?
Oh gosh, where to begin? Um, Med school was crazy. It was a huge experience. I think going in at 18, I went straight after school, straight after secondary school or high school, and I would have probably benefited if I had like a gap year or maybe even 2 years of a gap year. I think because I went straight to uni, it was a bit of a shock, like suddenly living away from home, having to cook for yourself, having to like make new friends. And my family live in the Middle East, so it was definitely a big culture shock. Even though I grew up in the UK, it was still a bit of a culture shock. Um, and but I really enjoyed it. You meet so many people, so many like-minded people, and people who aren't like you as well, and you just learn a lot. I feel like medical school for me was more like growing as a person. I mean, obviously, I did all the medicine as well, but I feel like the social like life element that you gain at university is huge. It really opens your mind to new ways of living, new ways of thinking. Being around people is just like that many people because you're with so many people all the time. It was really, really great. I think it's tough now for people who are starting uni in like a pandemic because I don't think they get that social element of like seeing people all the time. You meet hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people at university. But yeah, med school itself was good. So what we had was the first 2 years were very science-based lectures. Um, and yeah, anatomy, physiology, and then the last 3 years were clinical, so purely like just in hospital. And I quite liked that breakdown. It was good.
What about the university system? Is it public in the UK? How does it work?
So when I went to uni, I didn't really have to pay. I mean, you do have to pay. The way it works is the government. So it's £9,000 a year, and that's any degree, whether it's medicine or languages or business. It used to be 3,000, I think maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. It used to be £3,000. So there are loads of like protests around it being increased, like it tripled. So it increased to £9,000 a year, and the government give you a loan. So they pay it for you, and then once you start working, they take out your salary every month. So now when I'm working and I get my pay slip at the end of the month, they'll take money um, from my salary to start paying back all the debt basically. Um, but I think it's a good system. It works, and they also give you like maintenance loan, so you can have up to I think maybe £5,000 a year to help with like rent and bills and food and but again, you do pay that back over time. And some people's families, if they can afford it, they pay the £9,000 for them, and then they don't have any debt at the end. So.
And did you have international friends at the universities? There are a lot of international students.
Yeah. So there are definitely lots of We had some internationals in our year, and I can't remember how many there were. I think I want to say maybe 20 or so, or 30 in our year group. And our year group had about 300 people. So every year group will have international students, and they do pay a lot more. I think the first 2 years, which are just science based, they pay 18,000, and then the clinical years, which are hospital based, I think it increased by a lot. I think it was like £35,000 a
Mm-hmm.
year, and they have to pay it upfront. Like the government won't pay. Um, so they pay it right at the beginning, all in one go, and yeah, it's a lot more competitive because obviously there's less spots for them. So it's more competitive as well.
Mm-hmm. And you always knew you wanted to be a doctor?
Did I always know I wanted to be a doctor? I think definitely I was always really good at science. I also really used to love languages at at school. I really loved French and Arabic. So I took languages to the very end of school, and I also took sciences to the very end. And I really wanted to do languages, but I had that pressure from my parents, like, oh, what are you going to do with languages? And I was like, no, there's so much you can do. But I also did love science at the same time. So I thought I would take the safe option.
Mm.
And I did medicine. But I did really enjoy it because my dad's a doctor and he does
Mm.
IVF. So that's like in vitro fertilization. So he works
Mm.
with couples who can't have babies. And I used to sit in clinics with him and seeing like the impact he had on patients or couples was just phenomenal. Like patients who had been trying to have a baby for like 20 years and then
Wow.
it was just I could tell like doctors had such a huge impact on people's lives and I really wanted to have that for myself in the future.
And you mentioned this is your first year as a doctor. So how's the first year going? How's rotation going? Also, if you can explain a little bit how it works in the UK.
Okay, once you graduated, you have 2 years of being a junior doctor and you rotate different specialities. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got pediatrics now, and then I'm moving on to geriatrics next, which is care of the elderly. Then I have trauma and orthopedics. And then next year I have emergency medicine, and then I have urology. And my last placement is general practice, so a GP. So I'll do each one for 4 months. And then after that, you have to choose what you want to specialize in. I've started in pediatrics and we do rotations that are 4 months long. So I'm in my third month of pediatrics at the minute.
How is it being with pediatrics?
It's been really, really, really good. I didn't think I would love it as much as I love it. Um, because obviously when you're doing medicine at university, like all you see is adults all the time, most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. We had a pediatric block, but it was only 8 weeks, and I didn't go in that much because I had a lot of exams. It was like so I feel like I really missed out on my pediatrics block at uni. But then, yeah, it's at work. It's just so refreshing seeing children. I feel like they bring a huge innocence and like a light-heartedness to the work that we do. Um, you go in every day and like you're doing the same routine and it's like, okay, can you take a deep breath in and out for me? And like when it's with adults, it becomes routine, it becomes really boring. But with children,
Mm-hmm.
they're just so like what's the word, curious and interested, and it's a bit more fun and it breaks down your normal routine and it makes it less boring, and they're always running around and it's just a real joy and they get better really quickly, whereas with adults
Mm-hmm.
it's very chronic problems and you feel like you're not really achieving much or you're not really helping them instantly. But with children, they get ill really, really quickly, but they get better really, really quickly as well. So I've really enjoyed that.
And what about languages? And tell me a little bit more about this passion and how
Yeah.
this connect to your life as a medicine.
Yeah. So I grew up, so I'm originally from North Africa, from like Sudan area. So we speak Arabic at home. My family speak Arabic. So that's always, I think growing up bilingual means, because I was obviously in the UK for school, so I grew up bilingual, and I think that meant that studying a third language or a fourth language was just a little bit easier because you already have like a framework. Um, so I think when I was at school learning French, I don't know, I just fell in love with it. I loved learning new words. I loved I just feel like it opened up a different part of my brain. Like it really forces you to think um in about what you're saying, and yeah, I just loved languages and I loved the fact that it meant that you could travel in a richer way. You could connect with people better if you knew what they were saying. And I always loved traveling as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I could combine languages and medicine together,
Mm-hmm.
which is how we met, right? Because we met
Yeah.
in the Greek refugee camps in Samos. Um, and we were helping with translating in the medical clinic there, and
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was an amazing way where you can combine medicine and languages to help people, which is fantastic as well.
And if you can tell me a little bit, how was this experience in Greece for you? And also, if you had other international experiences like this?
Mm. Um, yeah, the experience in the medical clinic in Samos in Greece was one of the best experiences of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think um, I'd never done anything like that before, and growing up from like an Arabic speaking country, you always hear about the plight of Palestinians or the plight of people in Iraq and Syria. Um, and so I think finally being able to actually expose yourself in person to people who had been through like a refugee um, life experience was like right in front of you was really eye opening. It's one thing seeing it on the news from a distance, and it's one thing seeing it in person. And I loved just hearing people's stories. Um, yeah, it gives you a better sense of the world and what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you've done another work like this as a volunteer,
Uh,
even in the UK or.
in the UK, I was part of Médecins Sans Frontières,
Mm-hmm.
the society, but that was like a medical society at university. So we would from the UK, we would make campaigns. For example, reducing the prices of drugs, campaigning to pharmaceutical
Mm-hmm.
companies to reduce the prices of drugs, or we would showcase documentaries, or we do fundraising for certain causes. So it was more yeah remote from the UK, but it still had like a nice impact, and you felt like you're part of that community
Mm-hmm.
because conferences. So we go to the conferences for Médecins Sans Frontières, which stands for Doctors Without Borders,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd hear about people who went and volunteered with MSF as well, and that was always really nice too.
Do you see a lot of international patients over there? Is it common?
In the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't think it's that common. So I'm working in Birmingham, in the Birmingham area, and it's like the second biggest city. So it's definitely got a very diverse population.
Mm-hmm.
What I've noticed is that the doctors are very international. Most doctors
Mm-hmm.
are not all white, Caucasian. Most doctors are Asian or African. Um, that's the most common thing here that I've observed here. And the patients from what I've been treating and what I've seen so far, have been completely white. So I've thought that was always really interesting. Even amongst my junior doctor cohort, like everyone is a kind of British born and raised, but of a more Eastern ethnicity, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Mm-hmm. And how is it for you then to work in this more diverse group of doctors?
Yeah, I think it's so when I was at university in Bristol, the south of the UK is less diverse than the north. So Bristol wasn't as diverse as Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And in Bristol it was the opposite. All of the doctors were white, and I was often the only non-white person in the medical groups that I was in. And I can definitely feel the difference from because there was such a huge difference between Bristol and Birmingham. In Bristol, there was a lot of like unconscious, probably bias around racism and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the Black Lives Matter campaign, that was really in my medical my medical groups of friends. We started talking out about our experiences, and we found out that a lot of us doctors or medical students who were from more ethnic backgrounds had a lot of bad experiences in Bristol. Just to give an example, when I was in Bristol in my fourth year, I was on a dermatology placement, and I went into hospital just to do a normal clerking, so history and examination.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak English normally, and the patient said, "Oh, I don't think you can speak English. I need to speak to a different doctor or a different medical student." And I was saying in clear English as I'm speaking now, I speak English. I'm like,
Yeah.
I even have a British accent. And she was saying, "Oh, I can't understand you. I'm sorry, I can't understand you." And I just thought that's such a shame. Like, and then she asked for someone to translate for me, and I just thought that
Oh.
was ridiculous. So a lot of us had experiences like that in Bristol. So I think that's why I wanted to apply to somewhere a bit more diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you feel like, I don't know, you feel like everyone's a bit like you, everyone's not struggling as much, things like that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to hear this.
Yeah, yeah. It's sad,
Um,
really. So other examples were like, I think one of my friends, she was also going to do a history or an examination, and the patient kept saying that she was the cleaner and that there was no way that she would be a doctor.
um,
She was saying, I'm in my final year of medicine, and just things like that. So I think coming to a more diverse area definitely helps. But then it's a bit of a paradox, because if we all go to only diverse areas, then
yeah.
places like Bristol become less and less diverse because people
Mm-hmm.
are leaving. So it might even make things worse. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And when you were working in Greece and talking to patients, in not because you studied English, right? So how was the experience to talk to patients in a different language? Do you feel like there was still a barrier there, or how was this? Even though you
Yeah,
also grew up speaking Arabic.
yeah. It was definitely hard, because even though you speak Arabic and you might have learnt French at school, and I think the medical vocabulary is such a
Mm-hmm.
niche. um,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a niche, so that, like, I don't know the word, for example, for ovary is in Arabic. It's not something you use all the time, right? So there was
Mm-hmm.
definitely a barrier. I definitely found myself searching up medical vocabulary a lot. But I found it really helpful because it forced me to have to learn these words. And I think that's really important. I think it's really important to know medical vocabulary if you want to practice in a different language, if you want to practice medicine in a different language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really nice because we had such a big team, and some people spoke German, some people spoke Farsi, some people spoke Arabic. It was really nice. It was such a nice international team. And I think people who want to volunteer have a certain personality or certain characteristics that, like, when you all group together, you kind of just all connect well, because you've all come there for the same reason. So I really like that aspect. Yeah.
Would you call this humanitarian medicine? Do you think this goes under the humanitarian medicine idea?
So like what we were doing in Samos.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say so. I would say medicine is, anything that's not for profit. So we didn't go there because we were being paid or anything. It was completely
Mm-hmm.
voluntary. And all the medicines that we were using, they were donated medicines from all around the world. And, the ultrasound equipment and everything that we were using was donated. And those refugees didn't have access, because that's just the law over there. So I think without this kind of humanitarian medicine of people coming to volunteer, they wouldn't have had any access to healthcare. So yeah, I would say it is a humanitarian medicine, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about healthcare in the UK? I'll explain a little bit how it works, if it's
Yeah,
public, if it's private, how it works.
yeah. So in the UK we have the NHS, so the National Health Service, and it's completely free. So it's all on taxpayers' money. So we have quite high taxes in the UK. I think the lowest tax bracket is about 20% of your income, and it goes up to 40 and so on. Um, so some people don't see it as free because you're paying it through your taxes, but it is completely free if you have any medical illness. any operation, like you go to any hospital, you can be treated for free. You go to the GP, you're treated for free. And the NHS, I think it's one of the biggest employers in the world. I think it's, or at least definitely the biggest employer in Europe. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So it's a huge, huge system, and it definitely works. But I do think there are problems. Um, I think the fact that it's free is one of the best things about the UK. And I think a lot of British people are very proud of it, and as am I. I'm really proud of it. But I do think they can like the staff are overworked. There's huge shortages of nurses and doctors because the hours are really long. The pay is definitely not as good as in other countries where medicine is private, which makes sense. It's a governmental system, so they're not going to pay you as much as private companies would pay you. Um, but then that's why I think that people who do go into it are doing it because they really enjoy it or they really love it, which is also a good thing. And it obviously eliminates the bias of private healthcare where you might be paying for loads and loads of things because it's a business and they're trying to get you to pay for certain blood tests or something that are unnecessary. Whereas when you're going to the hospital in the UK, you can fully trust that this doctor doesn't have any like ulterior motive, because they're getting the same salary whether you get the blood test or not. Whereas in a private healthcare system, you might be coerced into, I don't know. It's less dodgy if it's public, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And also, do you think because the public, for example, refugee or more vulnerable people have access to health?
Yeah, exactly. So anyone can get access to health here. I don't know. I'm not sure if you have to be British to be treated. I think anyone can be treated as long as you're in the country. So it means that it's very accessible to all.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's really good.
Yeah. I think it's
And
something we take for granted because I think because we've grown up like this, when we go to other countries, we think, oh, surely it must be the same. But then you hear about in America, you go just have a child or like, and then you're billed like thousands and thousands of pounds to have a baby, for example. So, yeah.
do you know how is healthcare in Sudan?
Yeah, in Sudan, there are actually a few Sudanese doctors in my hospital. Um, I'm not too knowledgeable about it, especially because I haven't been back in a few years. But to my understanding, is it's all private. So you go to the hospital and you have to pay for every single thing. You even have to pay for like a cannula if you want bloods taken. You have to pay for every item, you even have to pay for the medical equipment. So you go to the pharmacy, you buy the cannula, you buy the drip stand, you buy the bag of saline. You have to buy everything and take it to the doctor. So I think, yeah, there's huge shortages of things, and I think everything's really expensive, and there's a lot of taboo about things. So, for example, because people can't afford healthcare, say for example, a woman has a lump in her breast or something, there's a lot of stigma around having cancer because it's such a costly treatment and people know that they can't afford the treatment, that they just don't go to the doctors or they don't tell their family because they know that it will be a huge burden. So sadly, there's a lot of taboo and stigma around being sick because it's seen as a burden, and it's all private, so you can't really. Yeah, it's really tough. I definitely think something I want to do is like some sort of humanitarian work in Sudan, as well at some point. Get a better idea of what's going on.
You still have family over there, right? You said.
Yeah, I saw a family over there. But I think the sad thing is a lot of people like might go to university there and become doctors. And then like, for example, my dad is a doctor and he has 5 brothers and a sister and they're all doctors. However, they all left Sudan. As soon as they graduate, they leave Sudan because opportunities are better in the other countries. And then obviously that's creating a huge sort of brain drain of the country where all the skilled workers and stuff are leaving and they can't develop the country more. And I think that's a really sad thing as well.
What are your future plans?
What are my future plans? That's a good question. um, so I'm still not sure. It's a really tough decision because um, once you're in it, it's obviously hard to drop out, and you kind of tailor all your application to what specialty you want to do. And there are some things I really really love. I think like I really love pediatrics and I really love emergency medicine, but the training is really tough. It's like lots of night shifts and weekends and weekend night shifts. So not everyone can hack that lifestyle, and like I said earlier, the pay isn't incredible like it is in other countries. So then that kind of leaves you with, if you don't want to do that kind of lifestyle of night shifts and weekends, and you have to move around a lot to get experience in different demographics, so different types of people, different to get that experience, they move you around a lot. So I think it can be quite unsettling, and the training is between 7 to 9 years for any specialty. So it's really long. The alternative is to be a GP, which is only 3 years. And being a GP has, once you finish those 3 years, you're on the higher salary. So it's a quick way to get money. And at the same time, it's not as taxing on your lifestyle. Because ultimately, as much as we love medicine, I think these things are important. Like your lifestyle matters so much, because as you can't be treating people if you're not feeling happy and you feel like you're not having a good work-life balance. So yeah, these things I'll need to think about more. But I think what I will do for sure after these 2 junior doctor years, I'm hoping to take like a gap year. You can take a gap year where you work as a doctor still, but you're not working sort of full time. You're working random shifts. So there's agencies. It's called locuming. So basically, if you're locuming, you're like a substitute teacher. If your teacher is sick, you'll need a substitute teacher for that teacher. But you're basically a substitute doctor for any shortages. So you work like a shift by shift pattern. It's not very predictable. You might work a random shift here and there, but there are always shifts available. Every hospital has a list of shifts that they need to be covered. And so as a junior doctor, for example, you get paid £13 an hour in the UK. But if you're doing a locum shift, you'll get like up to £30 an hour. So what people do is they do that for like a week, and then they'll have like a week off. But because the locum rate is higher, that week off, the salary kind of balances out. So people do that for like 6 months, and then they go traveling for the next 6 months, save money. So I think I might want to do that, and that way I can still, focus on my like passion for languages and travel a bit more and see the world. Hopefully, if coronavirus isn't still a thing in 2 years, which I'm praying it's not, then I'll definitely do this gap year, because I think it's needed.
And you have time to think what
Yeah,
your next steps are gonna be.
exactly. Just a little pause, and you still get to do medicine. So I'll definitely do that.
Yeah. I love talking to you. It was really nice.
I love talking to you too. You have such a like soothing voice. You have such a nice voice.
I don't know. Is there anything else you would like to share or you would like to say?
No, just thank you for having me, and well done on doing this project. It's a really, really good idea, and I look forward to hearing what other people from like other places in the world have to say. Yeah, I really look forward to hearing it. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right, Raisa, take care.